Well, Mr. Diemer, why don't we just start talking about your grandfather and your father and your mother and their background and how they got to Acworth.
Okay, I'll tell you the best that I've been told and that I can remember. But back in the 50s, my mother she went to Campbell High School. My dad went to Smyrna High School, and they were from the Smyrna area, and my grandparents, and they had a taxi stand in Smyrna, a little used car lot in Smyrna, and then they worked at Lockheed. So I think Mr. Hamner here in Acworth decided to sell his Chevrolet dealership. So my parents, Mr. Hamner, Bill Hamner,
Okay.
and I think my granddad and my dad bought the store from him in September of 1959.
Okay.
I was born in March of '59, so that's when we moved up here in September of 1959. My mom, my dad, and my brother Alvin. My granddad commuted from Smyrna every day, which was a pretty good commute back in the '50s because you came up, I guess, 41 highway. There was no 75, so he drove back and forth for probably 3 or 4 years, and then he bought a house up here in Acworth. So we've all been here. My whole family's been here since me 59 and him since I think 63 is when he came up.
Okay. He came. He came by himself.
He and my grandmother.
Oh,
He and my
okay.
grandmother came together. Yeah.
Okay.
Levi and Eva Lee Day. The store was named after my granddad, Levi Day, and it's Day Chevrolet. So and then we eventually, a couple of years later, he moved his parents up here, and they lived on Main Street here in Acworth, and that was we called him Daddy Day and Mammy Day. So our whole family came up here. We've been in Acworth for a long time.
Right. What attracted them to Acworth as just because there was a availability?
I think that's what it was. I think they wanted to try to open a new car dealership or get in the new car business, and they had for years. You would go to up north to Ohio or wherever and buy cars and they'd go buy them and then trailer them back down or tow them back down, I guess, on the weekends, and then they'd put them on their used car lot and sell them. And so they wanted to get in the new car business, and this came available. Acworth was a really small town, and they, they had worked hard to kind of put their resources together and start this business, which was huge for them.
Yeah. So even while they were in Smyrna, they're bringing the cars.
Yeah.
Used cars?
Used cars from up north, and they would sell them on their used car lot in Smyrna, Georgia. So they had a little bit of feel for the used car business, but, my granddad always had 2 or 3 jobs. He was a welder at Lockheed. So when he got in this car business, he was kind of the face of the car business. He was out front with the people selling the cars and building the relationships. And had it not been for probably Lockheed and the support he got from the people there, there wouldn't be a Day Chevrolet. I mean, they would drive up from all around the county and all over and support him, like you can't imagine. So,
well, what was your impression growing up of Acworth? What was it like back then?
It was a great town to grow up in. It was safe. It was a little country town. I mean, I remember when there was like a police chief and 2 police cars. That was all that was the force pretty much was Ray Jean Cantrell, who later became the chief, and Sergeant Beaver, and that was the 2 patrolmen, and they had their 2 cars, and there's then I think Chief Wilson was the chief, as I remember, for a long time there. But it was a small, comfortable, safe town. Never locked your house at night. Didn't take the keys out of your car. It was just a very safe, good community. Yeah.
Spend much time at the beach?
Growing up, we did. We'd always, every summer, we would go over, and I think they'd have swimming lessons that they would do over there. So my brother and I would go. And somebody at a class reunion had some pictures of us all standing there shivering as we got out of the water. So yeah. I mean, I spoke at the Kiwanis Club a few years ago when we talked about where Kenworth Park is and how that has just exploded in the Little League ball fields and when I grew up here, there were probably 8 Little League baseball teams, but it consisted of age groups from 9 years old to 12 years old. Okay. So, that was 8 teams for 4 years from like I say, from 9 to 12.
Oh, each age had a different team?
No, all the ages were on, like you were, if you were 9 or you were 12, you were on the, played against one another. So there weren't that many teams for that whole age group. Now there's probably, there's probably 10 or 12 8-year-old teams, 9-year-old teams, 10-year-old teams, all separate.
And where were you playing? Where did you play?
We played at Pop Willis Field when there was only one field over there.
Okay.
And you'd play one day on the week, one game on the weekdays and one game on Saturday, I think. And I mean, Red Walker coached, Kenneth Huffstetler, who was the mayor, coached, Douglas G. You know, just a great community.
Well, you must have been pretty good since you played in college.
Well, I went to Middle Georgia and got homesick and came back after a semester. I knew I wasn't going to play a long time after that, so it was just but it was a great program down there.
What position did you play?
I played center field. Played at North Cobb High School and played center field there, and went to Middle Georgia, and it was a great junior college program. They had won the national championship a couple of years, and it was a great opportunity. I got homesick, came back, went to Kennesaw College at the time, and
we didn't have athletics at that time.
no, little intramural sports there. That's kind of all they did. But no, it was okay for me. I came back and went to Kennesaw, and I started working at the dealership there. I'd always worked there in the summer since I was a kid, washing cars and kind of going through the transition of going through each department and all, just like my two sons have done. So just kind of that's how you go through that, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So did you kind of always know that you were going to work at Day Chevrolet? Or?
I don't think I ever considered anything else. I don't think I ever thought about doing anything except that. Just growing up in the business, and my granddad, we would work with him, and you know, the business has changed so much. I would give anything. He passed away in 1991. I'd give anything for him to see how this thing has progressed and changed over the years, and see his great-grandchildren doing what he did.
Yeah.
You know.
Talk about him a little bit. What kind of person was he?
He was a real family man. Worked. You know, I was saying that he worked at Lockheed and as a welder, and he always had 2 or 3 jobs and worked hard. I think as hard as he worked at Day Chevrolet building that business for all those years, I think that was almost a retirement for him as compared to the hard work that he did at a young age. You know, so he loved being Levi Day at Day Chevrolet and selling cars. He, you know, he would sell 10, 15 cars himself on a Saturday. It was unbelievable, the business that he built up here. But a great family guy. Every Sunday we went to his house. He had a pool. My cousins, my aunt, my mom and dad and brother, we would all go over there and cook out. And every Sunday it was just kind of a family deal. But he was all about family. And you know, I think he had a great reputation here in Acworth and built a great business from a little small, almost like a filling station type car dealership when they started.
Right. And your father, talk about him a little bit.
Well, my dad and my granddad were partners. My dad started off back kind of in the fixed operation, kind of the service department side of it. My granddad was kind of out front. And then they hired a service manager. My dad was always around the dealership, but he wasn't anything like as active as my granddad was. My dad he had race cars, and he didn't race them himself, but he had some people that drove his race cars for him and enjoyed that. And they just, they had a great working relationship. It was good. My mother, she has been there since 1959. She has just since retired December the 31st. Of course, she's still coming in. I don't know that we'll ever get her to not come in, but she's been there the whole 57 years that we've had the car dealership as the office manager. And so we're making that transition right now, and that's you know, it's kind of hard when somebody's been there 57 years for her to let go, but it's been a great family business that all of us have been able to work together and get along. My brother and I were partners. We became the dealers in Acworth in 1985, and we worked together real well for a lot of years. I bought him out in 2000, and since then it's been myself for quite a few years, and then
Did he get tired of the business?
he did. He really did. He's kind of developed some land up in the Blue Ridge area and done some things like that. But the car business is not an easy business. It's really not. So I think he just, after 25 years or so, just got burned out and said,
Now, well, I can understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when they started in '59, were they on Main Street at that time?
They were on Main Street right there.
Where they stayed until a few years ago?
Yeah, stayed there until 2003, I think, is when I moved over to the highway over here. And when I moved to the highway, there wasn't really anything at the highway. The growth had really not started. I think Home Depot had just bought some real estate over there, and then the Butler Creek Kroger was there. But there wasn't much over there when I moved over there.
Why did you move?
Well, I knew that we needed more traffic, and you knew that I tell you what probably prompted more than anything, when I heard that Home Depot had bought some land over there. I realized that they did some pretty good studies before they went out and purchased land, and I think the growth was coming. So my brother and I, although I had bought him out, he went in with me on the real estate, and we bought about 30 acres, 28 acres over there on the highway. When we could afford it. We probably couldn't afford it now, probably, if we had to buy 28 acres over there. But we bought the land, and I started off moving just the pre-owned, the used car department over there. When you're like the third generation coming along, you don't want to mess up what everybody has worked hard for. So I kind of tell everybody I put my toe in the water, just built the used car department over there to see how it would do. We were selling about 40 used cars a month in Acworth, and when I moved over there the first month, we sold 157 used cars. Wow. So it didn't take me long to start grading and getting the new car business brought over there. So Acworth has been so good to my family, and we've been part of this community forever. We annexed into the city after we built the dealership, because I wanted to kind of continue that relationship. But they understood, they understood that we needed more traffic and just to be in that, and it really has built up over there. Yeah. So, also married my high school sweetheart when I came back from Middle Georgia. A couple of years later, we got married in 1980. Her name was Malia Barfield. Maiden name was Barfield. She and her family, her dad started Altoona Landing over here on the lake back in the 50s, and they moved to Acworth and moved next door to my family. And Malia and I started dating. I guess she was probably in the 9th grade, and started dating, high school sweethearts. And
she was in the 9th grade, and you were back from Middle Georgia.
Well, no, I was actually at that time. I was actually a junior in high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
She's
she's 2 years years younger than me, and so we dated through high school, and then when I got back, we got engaged and got married, and had our 2 sons, and it's been 36 years later. So had a great run together. We really have. I don't know what else to say.
Well, want to talk about your children?
Yeah, talk about my children. My 2 sons, Daniel and Andrew. Daniel's the oldest. They both graduated from Kennesaw Mountain High School. I kind of say it's the first graduating class of Kennesaw Mountain, but it's really, I guess, the second. He started his 10th grade year and went 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, Kennesaw Mountain. And from there, he went to Auburn. My youngest son, Andrew, finished at Kennesaw Mountain, and then he followed Daniel to Auburn. There's 3 years difference in them. So
what did they major in?
Daniel majored in something called family business and entrepreneurship. That was something fairly new at Auburn at the time, I think. Yeah. And then Andrew went over to, I think he was going to major in accounting, and ended up, I think, getting a major in finance and a minor in accounting. So it worked okay in the business for them. Both of them came back and immediately started working. Daniel had worked there every summer, but we put him in the finance office to start off with, and that's kind of where you see the most of the car deals working, and educates you probably the most. And then he just started taking on more responsibility, and before long he was a sales manager, and then became the general manager. My youngest son got out of school, and we kind of took him on that same path. And I realized that, there were two of them, and they both probably wanted to run their own stores. They got along very well and still do to this day. So we bought another store up in Jasper and sent Andrew up there with Tony Till, that was my general manager in Acworth for quite a while. And he kind of mentored Andrew for the first couple of years there and let him get on his feet and learn the business somewhat. So
Jasper's a growing area, and all the retirees going up that way.
Jasper has been a real good store for us. We went up there and we leased a building from the Lawsons for a couple of 3 years till we could find some real estate up there and build a new place. So we finished Andrew's store in Jasper a couple of years ago, and he's got a really nice facility and a great business up there. So we're proud of that. That's been a real good addition to our business.
Well, it sounds like your father really would like to be back in the back doing repairs and service and all of that.
Yeah.
More than dealing with the customers.
Yeah, he didn't do much with the sales. My dad just was all around this town. He would be in the restaurants in the morning, and he had a lot of friends at the courthouse, a lot of judges in Cobb County that were friends of his, and he'd go have lunch with them. So he was all about building relationships around the county and the town, and but he wasn't the guy that was going to be there 10, 12 hours a day and selling the cars, So, and there again, it's hard to have two bosses. So that's kind of what I saw in my two sons. You kind of, so we put them in different places, and it's worked out good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. You were talking about how the business has changed over the years. I guess dealerships in general have changed over the years. Can you talk about what it was like back in the early days when you were growing up for your parents and grandparents and running the business as compared to today?
It was so simple to. I mean, my granddad literally had a little card box sitting in the showroom, kind of over to the side, that had each car line on a note card, and behind it had they would hand type the window sticker and the cost of the car and the options on the car. So you just go through that and pick the ID number and pick it up, and that's how we priced the cars. There wasn't that many options on cars. There weren't that many packages. Now it's completely different. When they price cars now, they're on the computers, and it pulls everything up and starts a deal working, and it's just the technology is so much different. And the young ones, my two sons and all the people that are with them, they adapt to it better than I did. They really are. So, but it's just changed. All the technicians now, there's 4 computers, I think, in our shops that download things to cars. We never had things like that back then. Cars run 200,000 and 300,000 miles now. We have several parts trucks, and we run them 300,000 miles before we trade them out. So,
so cars are a whole lot better made.
Cars are a whole lot better made. But the whole business has changed. All the salespeople now have to be certified in each car line, take classes on them, and it's just, there's a lot more, the customers, they're well informed now because of the internet, and they can do a lot of shopping. The good thing about the cars, they still want to come and look at the cars and drive the cars and touch the cars before they buy them, but it gives them a lot of information, and the salespeople have to be very knowledgeable. It's not like hiring somebody just to come in and sell some cars and open doors. Now you have to, there's a lot to it.
Well, I guess if you go back to 1959, it's Ford, Chevrolet,
and Chrysler,
Dodge. That's about it. It didn't have the Hondas and
no
Hyundais
Toyotas
and all that.
No, I mean you never saw a Toyota. Matter of fact, it was called Datsun before it was Nissan. So yeah, I mean it's all changed. Yeah. And the car business is very competitive, but it's been a good business for my family. It's been good to all of us.
How does the relationship with the corporate headquarters and a dealership, has that changed at all over the years?
Somewhat, but still it's a we have some good, strong relationship with our people from GM, and they come out and visit, and it's still a personable relationship that you have with them, with the factory. Yeah, so it's still good, still a great working relationship.
We did an interview yesterday where someone was saying that when US 41 was completed in the north part of Cobb County in 1950, Acworth downtown died, and then it came back, and then when the interstate was completed in the 70s, downtown Acworth died again.
That's right.
How did that affect the Day Chevrolet?
I think for us, my granddad had built such a reputation from people coming outside. It was almost he had so many customers in the word of mouth. There wasn't much advertising. So back then, his customers were coming from people, like I said, from Lockheed, people like that. He had some people that sold for him that actually worked at Lockheed during the day and would come in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and work till closing time, and they'd bring people. So, ours was more, it's kind of like we bought a store in Jasper from Dub Lawson a few years ago, and my youngest son runs it now in Jasper. But, the traffic before 5:15 was in Jasper. It was almost like a fun thing to do to go up to Jasper and buy a car from Dub Lawson. My granddad kind of had that same reputation. People would come from a long way to buy cars from him. So I guess probably the traffic wasn't as important back then. But then you could see when Town Center grew and all the car dealerships were coming in, that we needed to be more visible, just where people could see you and come by on a regular basis there.
There are a lot more car dealerships now, aren't there?
There are more dealerships now, but back when they had the downturn in 2008 and 9, there were a lot of dealerships that were closed by GM and Ford. We had actually purchased a Ford dealership in Rockmart a few years ago, and Ford decided to close that point. They didn't go close a lot of dealerships during that time, but when some came up for sale, they had the first right of refusal, so they would buy the dealership and close it if they wanted to close it. So we ended up building a used car supercenter over in Polk County in Rockmart that's done really well over there.
So you're throughout North Georgia now.
We got 3 locations there, and I wish we would have been able to get the Ford dealership, and I really think Ford sees now from what we're doing with the pre-owned store that it would have worked. Yeah. So.
Well, talk about your involvement in the community.
I've served on North Metro Tech, board at North Metro Tech, and different things. Cobb Community Foundation. We've tried to over the years, and this came from my granddad. We've tried to support the high schools and all the activities. Back when he was here, I think it was football and basketball and baseball, and that was pretty much it at North Cobb High School. It's a little tougher now because there are 4 or 5 high schools in your area, and it goes from football to lacrosse to band to chorus to so many different things that schools offer the students and activities that you pick and choose and do the best you can do to support as many as you can. We've also supported this Horizon Field. That was something that was one of the best things that I think this city has done.
Those with disabilities?
Yes, sir. And every year we host their end of the year banquet there at the dealership and cook hot dogs and hamburgers and have the parents and the kids all together. And it's the mayor comes, the alderman come, the city manager, the police chief comes. I mean, there's a lot of support from the city for the Horizon Field, and it's been Butch Thompson that owns Butch Thompson Enterprises. He and his wife come over, and they'll literally bring a big grill, and he'll stand up there and cook for hours for them. So it's
former county commissioner.
That's right. Yeah, Butch Thompson. That's it. Right. Yeah, Butch is a great guy. One of my better friends.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah.
Talk about North Metro Tech. How did you get involved with that?
I'm trying to think. I think I'm not sure if Earl Smith. I can't remember who asked me to join the board there, but I served on that board for probably 3 or 4 years. I'm going to say it was in the early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But I
this
can't
was
remember.
their foundation.
Yes. Yeah. And then they, of course, they merged, and there's been a lot of changes since then. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of who all was on the board back then. But it was a good learning experience. We had a good time and did what we needed to do there.
Mm-hmm. What about Acworth Business Association?
We've been members of the Acworth Business Association. I guess it's its inception. I'm sure we have. My son Daniel, that runs our store, that is the dealer here in Acworth. He's been on the board with Acworth Business Association. He's got 2 small children now. He's got one that's 2 and almost 3, and another baby that's he's 8 months old. But anyway, he's spending a lot of time with his family now, so he goes to some of the meetings, but he's not as active as he was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else that? That's a lot.
Help start Northwest Bank and Trust
Okay.
with Jimmy Durham, Lindsey Tippins, Otis Brumby. There were several of us. Jimmy Durham, I didn't mention him.
Yeah, you did.
But we started that bank in the early 2000s, and got caught in the terrible economy that caught a lot of banks. So I learned a lesson from that, and I figured out after quite a few years that I'm going to stick with what I know a little bit about, and that's the car business. Yeah, but I was involved in that, and that was a great learning experience. And I can say I was with some great men, and they were honest and conservative. And I think we all got a pretty good education with that.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, I think that sounds wonderful to have 4 generations of the family now that have been working together.
It's exciting, and I tell you, it's a lot of family businesses don't do real well together, but we've been able to make it work for many years, and we get along. We still enjoy our company with each other away from work. So we've been able to make that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that. Craig Aronoff, when he was at Kennesaw, was doing a lot of things with small businesses and the area. And I'd heard from that was sometimes a big problem.
Well, the transitions, the transitions are a little tough, but we've been able to make it. We've been able to make it work. So, I've got 4 little grandboys right now, and I don't know what they'll do, but
maybe have a 5th generation.
Yeah, we may have to start trying to find some more stores because we don't have enough of them for everybody to have one.
Okay. Well, I'm about out of my questions, I guess, but would you like to talk a little bit about the community and how you see it nowadays? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, this Acworth community has changed. The mayor, alderman, they've done, it's an amazing job how we've seen this town transformed into it's a big city now, and to see what they've done and the way the growth has been managed, and it's amazing to see this. They've kept the hometown feel of the downtown area, but they're doing. I was just with the mayor, and he was showing me some projects that they're going to do in the upcoming years, and they're just proactive, and they've done a good job. And back from when I go in the alderman's room there where they have the meetings and all, I see all the pictures of the past mayors, and it brings back a lot of memories to see the faces of people that had such an impact on this town, and have made it such a great place to grow up, a great place to live, and this community is incredible. It's fantastic.
Well, anything you'd like to add to the interview?
It's just been great to be a part of Acworth. It really has, and it makes me feel old to be here talking about the history of Acworth. I didn't realize how old I was, but no, been here my whole life.
You're still a young guy.
I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.